Hi, folks. Wow, it's today. Special edition Roe v. Wade got struck down today. That's some amazing bullshit. And I'm gonna go through a little bit why it's a lot of amazing bullshit. For those of you who've never tuned into this channel, Brewing Controversy, it's a show with normally me and myself. Or me, myself, and Lucas. So there's two of me. I don't know why I just invented another me. Yeah, Lucas and I like to come on here, drink, talk about current events and politics, usually with a leftward, or as I like to put it, realistic bent. And we're normally on Tuesdays, but we want to do a special edition today because of what's happened. Because it's not good. And there's a lot of layers to what's happened today. And I think, the more I've been thinking about this today, I really want to talk about how we got here first. Because the thing is, none of this matters unless we understand how we got here to a fundamental right of women to have basic agency stripped away. And I can't actually think beyond wartime and habeas corpus. I can't even imagine. I'm racking my brain for another time the court has stripped rights away from people. I can't find it. I really spent this afternoon searching, trying to figure out. Okay, maybe no, wartime, no, that was the Civil War. No, it just doesn't add up. So the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about how we got here. And the way I want to talk about it is going to sound a little bit roundabout, but bear with me here, please, because it's going to make sense here in about 3 or 4 minutes. Less than that, probably. So what this always makes me think of is prohibition, right? And most of us don't realize, unless you really dig down into the history of prohibition, that it had been a movement in the United States for more than 100 years before we got to prohibition. And it had a lot to do with how first the colonial and then later the American economy worked, and how that worked, and triangular trade, and lots of other stuff. But the basic thing was, there might have been a little bit of an alcohol problem in the United States. A little bit. But not huge. But what began to happen in the late 19th century is the temperance societies began to form. And one of the first things that they called for was, how do we replace alcohol? Right? It's such a useful thing. How do we, what do we do with it? And then once they got there, they started intervening with people. I mean, like, hey, you're drinking too much. Hey, this is a problem. And you had people like Carrie Nation and other radicals, but for the most part, they tried to build parallel systems that didn't need alcohol. That's the key thing. Building parallel systems that didn't need alcohol. So social functions in which alcohol wasn't served. And making a big deal about, hey, that's how we're going to do that. And the biggest parallel function that they built was the income tax. This is what most people don't get. Biggest parallel function that they built was the income tax. Why did they build the income tax? Because they needed to show the federal government, they needed to show people that the federal government could fund itself without the taxes from alcohol. That's one of the most lasting elements of prohibition. Is that in most important aspects of what happened during prohibition is we have an income tax, because they needed to build a parallel function that would provide the same things that alcohol was providing without the alcohol. Now, why is this important? Because the problem with the people trying to prohibit abortion have built none of the parallel systems, right? Now, I will grant you a lot of things going on with this topic. But again, the last time we tried to do this prohibition thing, the way we knew what the intentions are, and there were a lot of mixed intentions. I mean, we can go back and talk about the anti-immigrant aspects to prohibition. We can do a lot of different things. But again, the main thing that the Temperance League did when in the lead up to the banning of alcohol in the United States, the last time we had a ban that was this impactful on people's daily lives for something that hadn't been banned before, they built parallel systems to compensate for the fact that there wasn't going to be any alcohol. The people who have been arguing to strike down Roe v. Wade have built no parallel systems, right? They haven't said, okay, well, let's get more contraceptives into people's hands. Well, they don't want to do that. They haven't said, okay, we need to make daycare affordable and accessible to everyone. I haven't done that. How about prenatal care? Nope. Medical care? Nope. Housing? Nope. Jobs for new mothers? Nope. Nope. None of those things. Which should really tell you that what this is all about is not about the quote-unquote unborn or mothers or children or life or any of that. It has nothing to do with that because they haven't built any parallel systems to show people, hey, we can do this without abortion. I mean, that's the easiest way to win this argument, right? That would be the easiest way to win this argument today is, hey, you know what we did? We want to ban abortion, but in order for us to ban abortion, we need to have free childcare. They haven't done that. And again, using prohibition of alcohol as an example, we can see when people really want to ban something on at least a casual moral grounds. This is what they do. They build parallel systems. When people want to do this for other reasons, want to do something for other, they don't need a parallel system because the parallel system speaks to something that they don't care about. All they care about is stopping abortion. Not what happens. I mean, even if we want to go even further back, abolitionists, right? You had all sorts of abolitionists building parallel systems to slavery. Let's get them back to Africa. Let's train them. Right after the Union Army marched into an area, the Freedmen's Bureau would immediately follow them and start teaching kids. Right? They had to build parallel systems to compensate for slavery. Not a single Republican is talking about building any sort of parallel system to compensate for Roe v. Wade. No child care, no health care, no housing, nothing. Because it's not about children. It's not about pregnancy. It's not about the unborn. It never has been. Not even for the people who are out there right now celebrating. They don't care. They like to pretend like they care. But you very obviously press them and you say, okay, if this matters to you, why didn't you do any of the rest of these things? Because it doesn't matter to them. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and switch on the comments. It's shocking. So now that we've gone through like this really obvious, okay, we can all agree now that abortion, anti-abortion stances, anti-choice stances have nothing to do with the life of the unborn. They have nothing to do with women other than controlling them. That's it. I'm going to go ahead and paint this picture for everyone because that's the end of the story. That's the very end of the story. Is controlling women. That's it. We don't have anything else after that. Because if there was anything else after that, I should be able to see these parallel systems moving about, right? If I'm the legislature of a state that might be a little bit fuzzy about this, like say Pennsylvania or Virginia or Michigan, I should be able as a Republican to turn around and say, okay, so we're going to ban abortion, but in order to compensate for what's about to happen, we're going to make sure that every pregnant woman gets free health care and that every child is housed and fed up until age 16. We're going to make sure new mothers have jobs. They're going to get, we're going to have an affirmative action for new mothers. Your company gets additional tax benefits from hiring new mothers and giving them preferential hours so that they can, take care of their kids. We're going to, you may religiously be against contraception. Okay, fine. I get that. But you have to deal with the consequences, right? So, and I'm pointing something out, at least in no Protestant church that I'm aware of, is there a prohibition against contraception. In the Roman Catholic Church, there is. But again, Michigan isn't majority Roman Catholic. Neither is Pennsylvania or Virginia. This shouldn't be a religious problem. Unless it's not a religious problem that they have with contraception. It's a control issue. Because again, all this speaks to one truth, which is your objective is control over women. That's it. Not the welfare of children, not the welfare of mothers, not the rights of anyone, not the rights of, because certainly these same conservatives have no regard for human rights in any other regard, in any other place. So why just the rights of the unborn? Because they don't actually care about the rights of the unborn. We've made that clear. Right? They have rights only as long as they're inside their mother. That's it. That's the only place where they have rights. As soon as they pop out, they can be thrown in the dumpster. As far as they're concerned. It doesn't matter. In some cases, especially if they're probably immigrants or black or brown, or probably prefer that they be thrown in the dumpster. Right? So we've gone through our little history lesson on prohibition. Now I think we really need, I really kind of want to dig down just a little bit into the law of this. I didn't get the opportunity to take a bunch of notes on the new decision. I'm cribbing a little bit from parts that I know are still in there from the original leak. One of the big things that's in this that's just absolutely unhinged, in my opinion, and it really, it really goes to the idea that conservatives are not good at thinking through consequences at all. Even supposedly smart conservatives like Alito and Thomas. By the way, in case you're wondering, for my last day at my old job, I brought in a giant growler of Gypsy Circus's Nashville hot cider, which is absolutely delicious. And I am going to be drinking a lot of this tonight. So one of the big things that really struck me and shook me about this, at least in terms of understanding what's in this decision and its overall implications, because it isn't just about a woman's right to choose, right? Roe v. Wade has all these other impacts on American society that most, especially the anti-choice crowd, doesn't really think about, because they're told not to think about it. Because again, abortion isn't the issue. The first big one that's in there is, I'm not entirely sure the Fourth Amendment is incorporated anymore under this decision. Alito and Thomas have been playing around with this big idea about they don't like the idea of a right to privacy. And they define privacy in two ways, right? First way is the right to keep information confidential. That's basic Fourth Amendment stuff, right? The second way is the right to act on a decision without government interference, right? Without the government saying, I need to know everything about this, and I reserve the right to act on it. Now, that second part is the core of where the Roe v. Wade decision came from, right? Because the law in Texas said that you could have an abortion in the case of rape, incest, or danger to the life of the mother. And the issue that was happening in Texas was that if a woman came in and said, I want an abortion because I was raped, then there had to be this huge inquiry about whether or not she was raped. And then all of a sudden she had to prove that she was raped, right? Even though there's nothing in the law that should require that in any other place where to get a medical procedure on yourself, do you have to prove that someone else did something to you? I mean, I could walk into a hospital and say, with like a bullet hole in me, and say, I've been shot. And the hospital doesn't have to sit there and be like, well, we need to know who shot you. We need to discuss about the nature of the shooting, right? Was it was it a gag? Was it really a criminal shooting, right? Did he really mean to shoot you, or were you kind of asking for it? Were you wearing like sexy clothes with a bullseye on that portion that said shoot here? I don't have to do that. No one has to do that, right? Go to the hospital and say, I've been shot, fix me. I've been pregnant. I've been raped. I want an abortion. Not under the law in Texas before Roe v. Wade, right? Second way, danger, incest, right? And it's the same thing as rape. All right, so you need to point out the uncle, and did they really do it? I mean, can you prove that it was your uncle and not the neighbor boy Billy? Again, there has to be this whole criminal inquiry to prove that it was incest. Last was danger to the life of the mother. And you'd have well-meaning doctors show up and be like, the fetus inside is dead. We need to go ahead and get this out before she goes septic. Well, I mean, are we sure it's dead? I mean, there's no heartbeat, and it hasn't moved for 3 weeks, and there's been a lot of bleeding, and oh wow, she's got a really high fever. I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like I want to say. I mean, and this was actually happening in Texas. Medical boards spending their time while their patients died because they just didn't like the idea of abortion. It's bad. It makes me feel weird. I don't like it. Are we sure we have to treat our patient? Yes. I mean, it's insanity. Can you imagine that happening today in a hospital? You walk in with a fever and they're like, man, I don't know. I don't like fevers. Make me feel weird. Do we have to treat? I mean, the irony is that sounds like the most new age love child bullshit that you'd ever heard of. Right? But that's what was happening in Texas. And that's why Roe v. Wade happened. Is Roe showed up and said, it's not the government's right to ask me how I got raped, what parent it was, and your medical boards don't take too long. right? If I decide that it's in my interest and the interest of my health to have an abortion, then I'm going to have an abortion. There we go. Problem solved. And and Texas, the irony is Texas didn't even have to really change the law. Just Texas wasn't allowed to ask anymore what rape, what incest, what medical necessity. They weren't allowed to ask anymore. And so therefore abortion became legal. Right? That's one of the reasons why so many of these conservative outfits, oh, camera's getting funny. Kind of fixed it, maybe a little. Okay. That's one of the reasons why these conservative outfits have gotten so out of control with some of these laws is that they want to cut out that loophole. We don't have to ask anymore. We just tell you can't have one. No one can have one. I don't care if you're about to die. You can't have an abortion. Which, by the way, is the law in some places. The reason abortion ended in Ireland was because women were dying in Ireland when they should have had access to an abortion because they had a medical need. Malta has a whole system set up where they won't provide abortions, but they will put women onto planes and send them to other countries immediately to go have one because the Maltese just find it icky. Camera's still a little messed up. We'll get it fixed. Wait, maybe? Sort of? Okay. So, I mean, it's this idea that Alito and Thomas have put forth is this whole idea that you don't actually have an unqualified right to either of those things. To either of those forms of protection. You don't have an unqualified right to keeping things confidential, and you don't have an unqualified right to the government not interfering in your personal decisions. Well, what do I have a Fourth Amendment right to? And apparently as far as I can tell, in their view of the world, it's only if an officer actually has their hands on you do you have a Fourth Amendment right. At all other points, you have no Fourth Amendment rights. The Constitution does not exist. What? Are you kidding me? I mean, these are the same people who screamed bloody murder when the Affordable Care Act said you had to buy health insurance and said, you can't make me buy health insurance. But apparently, we can tell you whether or not you have to carry a child to term. Now, again, those seem slightly separate, but the logic is the same, right? It's the government now has the power to interfere with your personal decisions as a matter of constitutional law. So the Fourth Amendment's gone. Fourth Amendment's gone. I mean, I don't know where it's gone, but apparently, according to Thomas and Alito, the Fourth Amendment is now meaningless. The first clause of the Second Amendment is now meaningless, and the entire Fourth Amendment is now meaningless. Nice knowing you, Fourth Amendment. It was good while it lasted. So that's fun. One of the other things that I think we need to recognize from this decision. Man, is my camera still getting a little fuzzy? I'm sorry. I have no idea why my camera is being so fuzzy today. This is disappointing to have this happen all of a sudden. Move my mic back just a little. Maybe we'll get used to it. The other thing that this does that's really scary is the court has a system for determining what level of scrutiny to apply when you're asking uh, for constitutional protections. Strict scrutiny is supposed to be the highest level of scrutiny. And the whole thing about strict scrutiny is this: the government has to have a compelling reason to do what it's doing, right? And on top of that, it has to show that this is the least restrictive method that it can do something. Under this decision, strict scrutiny is gone. It's gone. It's gone. The government no longer has to show that this is the least restrictive method of doing something, ever. All it has to do is show that it has a compelling reason, and the court should defer to to the compelling reason put forth by the state. That's it. Not that this is the least restrictive method that we can do this with, but that, this is just simply what we want to do because we're the state. Oh, yeah, that's a little better. Camera's kind of coming into focus. Oh, I need a better camera. Start a GoFundMe for after this. So yeah, lots of constitutional protections that you have are gone. Because all the state has to do is show a compelling interest in why they wanted to do something. And I'm going to be honest. Honestly, from the language that they sprinkle throughout here, I'm not even certain that it's really compelling interest. I think it may just be rational basis, which is the lowest level, supposed to be the lowest level of judicial scrutiny involved. Is, does the state have a rational reason for doing what it's doing? The answer is yes. Then fine, we'll do it. And all that's bad. But wait, it gets so much worse. So one of the big things that we use strict scrutiny for is a process called incorporation, right? Incorporation is this nifty thing that we had to invent because people are assholes. Lots and lots of people are giant, festering, infected assholes. And we had to do something about it. See, the problem was, let's say I stood on a street corner and just shouted obscenities randomly into the air, not at anyone in particular, but as part of a protest. Right? I was protesting something and I just decided to protest it by shouting obscenities. And I got arrested by state police. And I got brought into a state court. And I say, you can't charge me. I have First Amendment rights. And the state court would say, in a federal court, you have First Amendment rights, but you're not in a federal court. You're in a state court where you have no right to free speech. That happened a lot. At the beginning of the last century, that was happening a lot. And what the Supreme Court did to end it was the Supreme Court came back and said, under the 14th Amendment, all citizens have equal rights. So, and if you are a citizen of a state, you are also a citizen of the United States. If you are a citizen of the United States, you can be a citizen of the state, not a citizen of the state. It doesn't matter to us. But you are always a citizen of the United States, and these are your rights. And case by case, bit by bit, they had to basically instruct, using the 14th Amendment, nope, the First Amendment is a right guaranteed to all United States citizens, even if you're not in a federal court, because you are always a United States citizen. Right? That's what the 14th Amendment says. You're always a United States citizen. I don't know if that's the case anymore after this. Because they've given such broad latitude to states. I think they may have just, they may have just undone incorporation, which I don't think was their intention. But again, these are not smart people. These are not intelligent people who think through the consequences of their action. They wanted to hit a conservative hot button issue and chalk up a win for their side, regardless of the judicial consequences or even the law involved. It doesn't matter. None of it matters. All that matters is owning the libs. We're going to strike down Roe v. Wade and we're going to own the libs. I don't think they thought this through, because I honestly question whether or not incorporation is still a thing. I would imagine that if I was a state, I could make a good case before a federal, if it's challenged under the federal, if someone tries to remove to a federal court, the state could make a good case. Well, we tried him in state court. He doesn't have First Amendment rights. He doesn't have Second Amendment right, because you've told us that we have brought that it is up to the states, right? It's our decision, not yours. So if it's, at that point, the irony is, this is one of the fun parts that I'm getting a kick out of. The Supreme Court made this whole thing about, New York can't stop people from concealed carrying in New York, or neither can California or all these other states. They can't stop people from concealed carrying in their states anymore. If I'm the state of New Jersey with my strict concealed carry laws, I'm more than happy to look at the federal court these days and say, you just told us in when you overturned Roe that incorporation doesn't exist anymore. So your Heller decision that says that the Second Amendment is incorporated under the 14th no longer applies. So you can go fuck off. Right? It's not your province. The state of New Jersey has decided. Go get Congress to pass a law. To me, that's exactly, if I was the New Jersey AG and the court just told me, you have to allow concealed carry, and then they hand this down, I'm more than happy to look at them and like, nothing's changed. And if someone tries to sue and go to the federal court and look at the federal court, you just said there's no longer incorporation. You just said that if they're in a state court, they no longer have a Second Amendment right because they're in a state court. One of these things is true. Either you give states this level of broad authority to do this, or you don't. And if you're only giving it on abortion, then this isn't really a thing, is it? Right? You're just picking and choosing topics regardless of what the law says. You're just going to randomly pick and choose, like, you know what? We, the Supreme Court, have decided that we will choose the president. That they may if they don't hold that true, that they're going to give states this wide latitude and now undo incorporation, then they may as well just say that. At which point the court is meaningless. Right? You can just look at the court and say, we're not doing that. What are you going to do about it? Because you literally, the whole idea of why people obey the court is because the court has judicial legitimacy. Right? The FBI is not going to storm into New Jersey and enforce some sort of weird ass concealed carry thing. The president, no one's going to do that. People obey because that's what's supposed to happen in a society governed by laws. But those laws are supposed to follow a logic, right? With the Constitution being the core logic. And if the Constitution doesn't matter anymore because they're just picking and choosing what provisions they're going to enforce or not enforce, then we're done, right? I mean, it's over. Cash it in. Because again, if I'm if I'm the New Jersey Attorney General, all I have to do is say, "You told me there's no more incorporation. I can do whatever the fuck I want." You don't have, and if you don't acknowledge that, then you have no legitimacy. And see, and again, it's the conservatives not thinking ahead, because here's what they've laid out a game plan in today's decision, which is they want to get rid of Griswold, which is the Supreme Court decision that guarantees women the right to access to contraceptives. In other words, no one can, you can't pass a law that says women can't have contraceptives. Now, there is no justifiable reason other than just pure religious zealotry why we would prohibit contraceptives. But and again, it's not even, as I pointed out earlier, it's not even really religious zealotry. It's just a desire to control. Because there's nothing in Southern Baptist theology that says women shouldn't be able to access contraceptives. There's nothing in evangelical Lutheran ideology that says women shouldn't be able to access contraceptives. There's nothing in anyone's theology except for the Roman Catholic Church that I can think of that says women can't have contraceptives. So it's not about religion. It's just purely about control. It's about turning women into incubators because we don't like women having the vote or rights or anything like that. We like the world being run by old white men. And we will find women and people who will support that because they think that they'll be among the chosen when we take power. Because they're that kind of bootlicker. So yeah, they want to get rid of Griswold. They want to get rid of Overfell, which I imagine, here's the thing with Overfell. That's going to be a lot harder for them to get rid of. Because because you can't unring that bell, right? Homosexual couples have gotten married. They have legal rights as married couples, and they're married. You can't undo that, right? We have a whole list of property records and tax records and healthcare policies and wills and trusts and all sorts of other things. That one's a pipe dream, but they want it. No, Brian. You know what? I want to make this very clear. No, it will not. It will not come out. Because this is going to get a lot worse. Because I'm going to tell you where they want to go. And they've made this clear where they want to go. Right? They made it clear when Trump put his political appointees up, and the Federalist Society, which is the conservative, at this point, we need to acknowledge, I would not have said this of some of their members, but at this point, I will. I'm going to say this. These are fascist. It is a fascist legal society. They're after Brown v. Board. This was if we can get Roe v. Wade out of the way and hit the 14th Amendment as hard as we can. And I'll be honest, if we can hit that as hard as we can, that separate, that idea that all people are equal, then we can hit Brown v. Board. For those of you who don't know what Brown v. Board is the court case that ended segregation. It was the original impetus of most of what has become the modern this species of conservative movement that has taken over the Republican Party. That is its genesis. When groups like to say, "Oh no, we founded this organization in opposition to abortion," and you say, "Okay, you founded your group 4 years before Roe v. Wade happened. How did you form this in opposition to?" Oh, but you founded it 1 year after Brown v. Board, or 2 years, 3 years after Brown v. Board. So you founded it after Brown v. Board, but well before Roe v. Wade. Um, you know what? The Illuminati and the Bilderbergs would be smarter than this, a lot smarter, because the level of anarchy that this is about to unleash is just simply unimaginable. Because how are you going to enforce it, right? You're gonna say, "Oh well, we're gonna prosecute the doctors." Okay. Well, now you have a patient with a dead fetus dying of sepsis on your table, and now you as a doctor are presented with two options. Either you lose your medical license and you get sued out of into oblivion for failure to treat the patient that's in front of you, or you get arrested and or sued by the state for performing an abortion. Which is it going to be? Which is it going to be? No one knows. It's chaos because the conservatives do not think through these things. It's all just about punishment and power and an exercise of power. It's not about maintaining order. They don't care about order. They don't care about the economy. They don't care about anything. All they care about is power. In fact, the organizations that care about the economy are already saying, if any of our employees need to go get an abortion, we'll pay for it. Because we need to be on the right side of this thing, because this is not going to turn out well for us. If we get found out, if we get caught on their side of this issue, all of a sudden it comes back into focus. Thank you very much, camera. Fuck you very much. We don't want to get caught on their side of this issue. It's insane. And they are coming after Brown v. Board, because when Trump put his judicial nominees up, and I mean, it's a casual, at this point, it should be a casual question, but it seems that some Democratic legislators knew enough to ask, so how do you feel about Brown v. Board? Never since it's deciding, would anyone answer, of course I support anything other than, of course I support Brown v. Board. When Trump put his nominees up, a lot of them were silent or danced around the question. They want to destroy the 14th Amendment. And again, incorporation is going to be one of the things that gets lost in this, because again, you need the 14th Amendment to incorporate gun rights. Because they want to go destroy Brown v. Board, because they get really upset about the fact that black people can go to school with their kids and go to restaurants and aren't in ghettos anymore. Yeah. This is part of a strategy. And you can see where the strategy is going. The strategy is going towards Brown v. Board. We hit Roe v. Wade, then we hit Griswold, then we hit Overfell, and then we hit Brown v. Board. And we end integration. States can now segregate black people in public spaces. And that's what Thomas wants, right? Thomas wants black people, because he's not black. He's married to a white woman. He's not black. None of those people are black. Marshall wasn't black. He was I'm sure, again, this is in Thomas's mind. Thurgood Marshall wasn't black. He was an communist agitator. It's just, it's dumbfounding. It's just dumbfounding how stupid this is. And the consequences that are going to come from this are going to manifest themselves quickly. You're going to have a lot of women arrested for getting medical abortifacients, for getting chemical abortifacients. That's going to be the first place where they're going to try and crack down. They're going to treat medical grade abortifacients as like they're crack cocaine. They're going to be watching your mail to make sure you don't get those pills to safely abort at home, which you can do most of the time. They're going to be watching you to see if you head to the airport to get an abortion. They're going to be pulling over they're going to be pulling over cars asking, where are you going? To the airport? Are you pregnant? Why is that in your business? Well, we think you're getting on a plane to get an abortion. So we're going to arrest you and put you in prison until you have your child. That's going to happen. That's going to happen starting tomorrow. Not some dystopian future. That's happening tomorrow. Tomorrow. Not 2 years from now, not 3 years from now. That's happening in Central Time. That's happening in roughly 4.5 hours. 4.5 hours. A lot of women are going to die. And the reason is because abortion is a medically necessary procedure in a lot of cases. And hospitals aren't going to know what to do. And women are going to sit there and die on the table because the hospital is afraid of because the doctor's afraid of getting arrested. The hospital is afraid of being shut down. You're going to have, the level of chaos that's about to be unleashed is unthinkable. I can't even really fathom it. I have a really fucking vivid imagination about how this shit could go down, and I can't even wrap my mind around how much chaos is about to be unleashed. And just to be clear, at the beginning, it's not going to look like utter anarchy, right? That's not how the slides into anarchy work. It doesn't just happen that you turn on the light one day and all of a sudden there's zombies and shit running around on the street and people shooting. That's not what happens, right? It's, oh God, that horrible thing happened over there. Oh God, that horrible thing happened even closer. Oh God, that horrible thing happened here. It doesn't happen all at once. But it's coming really quick. And again, no conservative organization, none of these podunk assholes from lower Bucksnort, whatever, Michigan, Tennessee, Georgia, have thought through this process of how any of this would work. They just wanted to throw grist at in many cases, they just want to throw grist at their constituents. See, I voted to ban abortion. Okay, now what? Who goes to prison? Who enforces it? If a doctor doesn't, do they lose their license? Do they pay a fine? What about medically necessary ones? We didn't write that in because we were angry about it and we wanted to show that we were taking a hard line. All right, so you're going to explain to communities why healthy young women died from ectopic pregnancies, from miscarriages, from sepsis. I mean, we need to be honest here. Human pregnancy is not easy. There are a lot of things that can go. That used to be one of our main methods of birth control. What would happen? Well, I got my wife pregnant and then she died. So I got a new wife. She gave me a kid and then she died. And then the kid maybe died later. So I got a third wife. That one gave me 2 kids and then she died in childbirth. It's been one of our main methods of birth control. Or population control was human pregnancy is fucking dangerous. There's a better than, I mean, there's a decent chance that something goes wrong. And I mean, hell, we evolved so fast, fucking head doesn't fit through the hole it's supposed to go through. Whole fucking bone structure has to change so our giant ass fucking head can get through the hole. This is a dangerous fucking thing. No, there's no thought about this. No, doesn't even have their head. So a lot of women are going to die. The other way they're going to die is because they're that desperate not to have a kid. Now, especially if we ban contraception, shoot, man, it's going to be all over the place. Every Pizza Hut will have a fucking abortion clinic in the back room. I'm like a large 3 meat hung up to dry. Door opens. Some guy, shady ass fucking tools. So yeah, I know how to do this. I've done this all the time. It'd be $500. I mean, here's a big swig of fucking Everclear. You know, I get caught with drugs. I go do hard time. That's the shit where women end up infertile. No woman who goes for a genuine abortion today in America at a clinic equipped for it comes out infertile. They don't come out worse than they went in. Right? This shit. And women are going to die. They're going to die of sepsis. They're going to die of infection. They're going to die of botched abortions. A lot of them are. A lot of women who didn't need to die are going to die. The only hope that we have right now is that Brian is correct in this. I want to come back up to this one. Only hope right now is this, is that the conservative dog has finally caught the car. Right? That enough people are going to be outraged to say, no, we need to have a national law that guarantees the right to abortion. Because the court hasn't done anything for that. I mean, in its own way, its own horrific, awful way, I suppose we owe the Supreme Court a thank you, because they just put the midterms back in play. Right? Because they've just said, like in Pennsylvania, it's touch and go about whether or not they'll ban abortion in the state of Pennsylvania. Fucking hell. I'm a Pennsylvanian. I'm showing up with bells on. I don't care how bad grandma feels from the hospital. I'm pulling that bitch on that hospital bed to the polling place and being like, no, she's good. She's still a sane mind. She can vote. We have a chance. I mean, the horrible thing about this is it gives us a chance, and hopefully a chance to get enough senators in to pass a national right to abortion. It's going to be a little bit touchy, mostly because Manchin doesn't like it. God only knows what Sinema thinks from moment to moment. Well, she's trying to look cute and sexy to her future corporate employers. Yeah, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be real bad. Legally, it's gonna be bad because they've just ripped open a whole giant gaping hole in American jurisprudence that I'm at a loss for how we're gonna fix. Morally, they've continued a tradition of fuck everyone we don't like who isn't a white evangelical male. We want power, and we will take power however we can. I think maybe the saddest thing that we have to acknowledge is that today the Supreme Court stopped being the Supreme Court. Or it today was at least the first step in the Supreme Court stopping being the Supreme Court. Because it lost its moral legitimacy today. It took rights away from people. It told women that they weren't real people today. And I don't know how they walk that back. They took for themselves a power that was expressly forbidden to them by custom. We can give rights, we don't take rights away. I mean, even with the Second Amendment, right? Even with all that, we can give rights for people to own guns. We don't take them away. Okay. I don't like that you're giving them rights. I wish you would allow us to restrict it, but at least you're staying on a track. This took rights away from people. And I don't know how they get that back. I don't know necessarily how our country gets that back. It's not a good day. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for commenting. Please like and subscribe. And as is our custom for our sign off, good night, good evening, and good luck.